She stood up in front of the entire department and said, word for word, I've been working on this for months. My project, my data, my late nights. And she said it with a straight face. Okay, back up. I'm a data analyst at a mid-sized marketing firm, nothing glamorous, but I genuinely like the work. About 6 weeks before this blew up, my manager handed me a solo project. Build out a full campaign performance report for one of our biggest clients. New format, new metrics, the whole thing. I was excited. I stayed late, I reworked the structure 3 times, I actually cared about it. Now Danny, she sits 2 desks over from me. We were friendly enough. Lunch sometimes, the occasional vent session about deadlines. So when she asked if she could take a look at my draft to get inspired for her own separate deliverable, I said sure. No hesitation. She was a colleague, I trusted her. That was my mistake. That was the only mistake I made in this whole thing, and I want that on the record. So the quarterly review meeting rolls around. Big one, our director is there. A couple of senior managers, the client liaison team. I'm sitting near the back because I figured my piece was just one small chunk of a longer agenda. And then Danny gets up. She pulls up a deck, and I'm looking at the screen thinking, wait, wait. Those are my charts. That's my color-coded breakdown. That is the exact framework I built from scratch, including a weird little annotation style I use that literally nobody else in the office does. I put asterisks next to outlier data points with a custom footnote key. It's a quirk. It's MY quirk. She starts presenting, and I'm sitting there with my mouth open just, watching it happen, in real time. After the meeting, I pulled her aside. Calm, very calm, I said, hey, I noticed your deck had some similarities to the draft I shared with you. Can we talk about that? And she looked me dead in the eyes and said, oh, I used it as a jumping off point. That's just how collaboration works. Collaboration, right. Collaboration where one person does everything and the other person presents it as their own. Got it. I told her I'd need her to clarify that with our manager, that the original framework was mine. She kind of laughed it off. I mean, it's already done so, that was her answer, so. I went to our manager, Terrence, directly. Explained the situation, told him I had version history, timestamps, the original files on my work drive. He said he'd look into it. That's corporate for I'm uncomfortable and hoping this dissolves on its own. It did not dissolve on its own. Because 2 days later, I found out Danny had been CC'd on a client follow-up email praising the report she'd presented. And she replied. She replied and said, so glad the approach resonated. I put a lot of thought into the structure. A lot of thought into my structure. I forwarded that email to Terrence with my original file attached and one line, timestamped 6 weeks ago. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. Terrence set up a meeting. Me, him, Danny, and, surprise, our department director, who had apparently been looped in because the client was involved. Danny did not know that last part until she walked in the room. Terrence pulled up both files side by side, my original draft with the timestamp, her presentation deck. The director is just quietly comparing them. You could hear the ventilation system. And Danny, and I want you to understand, this is what she actually said. She looked at the screen and went, I mean, we talked about the project a lot, so some of my ideas probably ended up in her draft without either of us realizing it. My ideas in my draft that I wrote before she ever touched it. Terrence started to say something measured and diplomatic, and I wasn't having it. I said, Danny, the footnote key, the asterisk system, the color tier structure, walk me through which part of that was a conversation we had. Silence. Because I have never once explained that system to you. It's not in any of our documentation. I built it for this project. She pivoted fast. I'm not saying you didn't work hard. I'm saying it was a collaborative environment and lines get blurry. There were no lines, I said. You asked to look at my draft, you took my draft, and then you told a client you built it. She pushed back her chair and said, and I quote, I cannot believe you're making me look like a criminal over a PowerPoint. And I said, I'm not making you look like anything. The timestamps are doing that. The director closed his laptop, looked at Danny, and said, out loud, in the room, while I was sitting right there, the client follow-up email is the part I can't get past. That was a direct misrepresentation to a client on behalf of the company. That's not a gray area. Danny went white, like actually white. The director looked at Terrence and said they'd need to send a correction to the client, attributing the report accurately, meaning my name goes on it, officially, in writing, to the client. And then he told Danny that HR would be following up with her separately about the email. She tried to say something. He stood up, meeting over. In the hallway, Danny walked past me and muttered, "I hope you're happy." And I didn't say anything polished or gracious. I said, "I'm getting credited for work I actually did, so yeah, a little bit." People in the hallway heard that. I know they did. The correction email went out the next day. My name on the report. The client responded saying they looked forward to working with me directly on the next cycle. So here we are. Honestly, though, was I too harsh at the end? Because some people think I should have been bigger about it. Comment below. I genuinely want to know what you would have done. And follow for a new story every day.